Hello everybody and welcome to our session Inclusivity by Design. It is so lovely to have you here with us. We're in Showroom Cinema 1 in Sheffield, which is a cosy, modern cinema space with tiered seating. There's a large screen behind me and 4 seats beside me, where I'm joined by some absolutely brilliant guests today. And we've also got a gorgeous guide dog whose tail has not stopped wagging all day. You'll find out more about all of our guests shortly. So before we get started, I'll just describe myself for anyone who may find that useful. I'm Naomi Wilkinson. I'm a white woman in my very early 50s. I've got long blonde hair worn loose. Today I'm wearing a dress that grades from white to purple and silver shoes, and I am smiling because I am really genuinely excited to be here today and really honoured to be hosting this conversation. We'll also be inviting each of our panellists to describe themselves when they speak, including not just what they look like, but maybe a little something about how they're feeling or what they're bringing to this discussion. It's a simple way we can start thinking about how to make our work and our conversations more inclusive, something we've been inspired to do after watching a beautiful short film by one of our CMC changemakers, Eleanor Stollery, which we're going to see in just a moment. Also, if you would benefit from closed captions during our session, we recommend using the free app Otter AI. Otter provides live transcription and captions directly to your device in real time, so you can download the app, simply press record when the session begins, so now, and then you can follow along with the live captions. And if you need any help getting that set up, please do ask a member of our team and they'll be very happy to help you. So let's dive into our session, Inclusivity by Design. It's all about the power of embedding inclusive thinking right from the start of the creative process, not as an afterthought, but as a way to unlock bold, exciting storytelling that connects with more children and families. We've got a fantastic panel joining us today, here to give us insights from across production, across coordination, broadcasting, and lived experience. But before we meet them, we want to start by hearing from someone who reminds us exactly what's at stake. This is a short film by Eleanor Stollery, a 14-year-old audio describer, performer, and changemaker. And in it, she shares what accessible media means to her and what it means when it's missing.
Hi, I'm Eleanor. I'm white with blonde hair and I use a white cane. I was recently in a documentary on CBBC's My Life called How I See It. I'm 14 and I'm visually impaired. I lost most of my sight when I was 4 because of a brain tumour, but I still love performing, singing and, like most 14-year-olds, watching great TV. Only, not all of it is that easy to enjoy. That's where audio description, or AD, comes in. AD is when someone describes what's happening on screen, so people like me can follow along, even if we can't see it, like this. A caption on screen reads, "Only around 14% of UK programming is available with AD, Ofcom Accessibility Report 2024. Which really limits what I can enjoy on TV. That's got to change. But it's not as simple as just describing the picture. Take this example.
A girl in a blue jumper walks away down a hospital corridor. A man and a woman walk beside her. There is a door to the left. The door is brown. The flooring mimics a road.
Technically, that's all correct. But you missed the most important bit. I was about to get some news about my health. Rewind, please.
Eleanor walks away down a hospital corridor, using her white cane. Her parents walk beside her in silence, a nervous energy hanging in the air.
See the difference? The second one gives you context, the emotion. It's not just a list, it's about what the scene feels like. That's what makes good AD.
2 juvenile females approach the vertical recreational structure. One participant begins ascent, engaging upper limbs to locate textured protrusions. Her companion expresses muscular fatigue.
Wow, that wasn't very easy to follow, was it? And what kid is going to understand recreational structure? I mean, come on! Let's try that again. Romilly's climbing the wall, holding onto ledges.
My arms are tired already. Can I come down now?
Now it's Alice's turn. Alice looks nervous and exhausted. See? Same scene, but a lot more engaging, and so much easier to understand if you're actually a kid. That's why audio description needs voices and words that make sense for the audience. Kids deserve that too.
So well said, yeah. Thank you to Eleanor. A really powerful reminder there that accessibility isn't a nice to have, it's essential. And as we're here today, it doesn't just benefit disabled audiences, it also makes the content stronger, more imaginative and more engaging for everyone. So I'd like to encourage you to watch the whole of Eleanor's film. It really is fantastic, and you can find it on the CMC website or on YouTube. So I'm now delighted to introduce our fantastic panellists who each bring unique insight into how accessibility and inclusion can shape storytelling, production and commissioning. So we have Lawrence Clark here, comedian, writer and representative of the TV Access Project, TAP, helping drive change in accessibility across the industry. Would you like to introduce yourself, Lawrence?
Sure, hi. I'm Lawrence. I'm a white man in my early 50s as well. With short, brown, going grey hair, wearing a green T-shirt. I'm supporting a new grey jacket that I got for Father's Day.
Oh, perfect. Next we have Dr. Amit Patel, presenter, disability advocate and the real-life inspiration behind Dog Squad on CBeebies. Welcome, Amit.
Oh, thank you very much. So this is quite difficult for me. You're asking the blind guy to describe himself. I will describe myself as British Indian. I would say 6 foot tall, but I'm not. I am handsome, though, so just bear that in mind. Handsome. I know I'm going grey because I can feel the greys, but I'm not admitting that. And I'm happy. Do you know what? I'm happy because I've been here for a couple of days now, and I've heard the word inclusive bounded around a few conversations. I love to sit in a coffee shop and listen to the conversations that are happening, and it's positive. So I feel happy. I feel happy to be here.
Pleased to hear it. Next we have Erica Angel, producer and creator of The Sound Collector, a beautifully crafted show where sound, silence and inclusive design are at the heart of the storytelling. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you. I am a white woman. I've got short blonde bob hair. I'm wearing my favourite green trainers and green linen trousers and a belt I had to buy this morning when I realised I didn't bring anything with me to hold my trousers up.
Lovely. And finally, Lisa McIntosh, Commissioner at Sky Kids, here to share how inclusive thinking is being embedded across their entire slate. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I don't have to follow that, really. I am a white 38, almost 39-year-old female. I'm 5'3", 3/4. 3/4 are important. I still get dimples when I laugh, even though I am almost 39 years old. I'm wearing a black skirt and a white top, and I'm quite impressed that I haven't managed to get any coffee down it yet.
Yeah,
so,
feeling the same.
Yeah, it's been a long day.
Good so far. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. So we're going to start straight away. What does inclusivity by design mean to each of you? Maybe Lawrence, could we start with you?
Sure. So you'll hear me talking a bit at TV Access Project. We came up with the 5 A's, and the first of those A's is anticipate. So inclusivity by design means anticipating working with disabled people right from the very beginning, because of various historical barriers. Disabled people have been underrepresented in our industry, but that's changing rapidly. And we need to get to the point where it's absolutely normal every day, and we should expect to have both on-screen and off-screen disabled talent in our production. So it means thinking about access in our designs from the very start, rather than going back later on when someone disabled comes along and making changes. And actually, that's the most economical way to do it. Because very often, those adjustments and changes can be more costly than if we just thought about access and inclusion when we're designing sets, booking locations, etc. in the first place.
Yeah, quite right. What this session is all about. Do you want to tell us about more of the 5 A's at the moment, or should we come back to that later on?
I think we'll come back
to
to
that
it.
later on.
I'm sure we'll come up.
Yeah. All right, Amit, what does inclusivity by design mean to you?
For me, it very much means that anybody and everybody should be able to access the content out there, not just with audio description, subtitles, but also the platform you put it on. It's no good putting content out there that can't be accessed by visually impaired people because their screen readers don't work, or having content out there that you get to choose who gets to watch it because it doesn't have audio description, it doesn't have subtitles. That, to me, is completely wrong. And I don't think I ever experienced that when I was sighted. I never really thought about it. It was only when I lost my sight did I realise there's not just one barrier, there's barriers. And as Lauren says, it's only when that disabled person starts kind of shouting about it that organisations change, but they don't change quick enough, or they don't think about it right at the beginning. If you did think about access, you thought about how it's accessed, who's watching it, and making sure everybody can watch it or listen to it from the start, I don't think anybody will have a problem with it. It's just when the issues arise, you come back with, there's no budget. And that's what it comes down to, there's no budget. And to me, that's frustrating. It really is.
Yeah. Erica?
Completely agree with both of those. And I just wanted to add about representation. It's so important, especially for children, to see their experience reflected on TV, and to see every kind of people is only going to make our shows better and the world better.
Yeah. Over to you, Lisa.
To me, on a personal level, I think it just means everyone. Everyone has the opportunity, everyone has the chance, everyone's involved, everyone's invited. As a commissioner, excuse me, it's about threading that belief through the programming that we do, the commissions that we make. Not considering inclusivity is kind of like inviting some of the people to the party at the end and asking them, did they have a good time? Why not just invite everyone at the start? Because I think it just makes a lot more sense.
Well said. Okay, so it's time to dig deep into some of the real-world case studies that show what inclusivity by design looks like in action. And we're going to start with a very special show that puts working dogs and accessible storytelling centre stage. So Amit, we've obviously got to talk to you. Dog Squad was inspired by your real-life experience. So how did that personal story evolve into a CBeebies format? And what inclusive design elements were essential right from the very start?
You see that show there. That's what happens in my head every day. I hear my dog hears me. It's funny how when we first started talking about Dog Squad, we sat down with Jane and Hello Halo, and it was very much, this is what I do. This is not made for film. I cross a road, I use those facilities to cross a road, and I talk to my dog every day. And I hope my dog talks back to me, but I think the hardest part was actually finding the voice that suited, because if anybody of you've got dogs or your pets, you know what they sound like when they're talking to you, and that was the hardest thing. But in real life, when we wrote the script, it's very much giving you the audio description at the same time. It's not making you overthink, and it's educating. And I really thought that, could we really produce a show about working dogs, and will it be a hit? And the feedback was absolutely amazing. The fact that I can't now touch one of those cones on the school runs because there's always a child doing it for me, and it's, Dr. Hammett, it's fine to cross. I want to check, please. I want to check. But the best thing is when parents tell me that when the cones don't work because their kids have tried it, they do complain. and they get fixed. So it's that awareness. But also, I've got 2 young kids, and I've always thought, as a visually impaired dad, I don't ever want my kids to think they've missed out on something because their daddy can't see. And it was always in the back of my mind when my child was born. And I said, I want to be the best dad that I could be. I don't want to be the best blind dad I could be. I want to be the best dad that I can be. So I will push the boundaries. I will find, ways of working. You will find disabled people are natural problem solvers. We will find a way because the world isn't made for us. We are sometimes an afterthought, so we'll find a way to work. So this show highlights the fact that you can be visually impaired. You can be a father, you can be a husband, you can go out to work, you can go out to the park, you can do things with your kids, you can have a social life, but you do it differently. And that's what I want to teach kids. It doesn't matter that you have a disability, and kids don't focus on disabilities. They focus on the abilities. My kid, when my son brings his friends home, they're amazed that I can walk around the house completely blind, but I know where everything is. I can make sandwiches for them. We can sit down and watch TV because my audio description is on the TV. My TV talks back to me. We could do everything everybody else does, but everything has its place in our house. And that's what they realise. There's no Lego on the floor. I'm not going to trip over Lego. My kids will put things back in its place. And it's those little things that they know. They notice the little braille labels on the sugar or on the beans or on the spaghetti or on the washing machine. You notice these little bump-ons, but the tactiles. But it's to show them that we can still use normal appliances. We still use everything everybody else does. It doesn't look any different. And I think it's the adults who are scared. It's the adults would come around and say, oh, your house hasn't got any adaptions. It hasn't got any grab rails. Well, I don't need grab rails. It's that assumption of being disabled. People automatically assume your house is different, you live differently. And this showcases that we don't. We can still have that fun. We can still do whatever we want, but we want the choice. Now, if I want to take my son to a museum, it's great that if we can go to a museum which has a touch tour where I can feel something, but when you call that museum and they say, oh, the only day you can come for a touch tour is on a Wednesday at 3:00, that doesn't work for me. I'm not going to pull my son out of school to do that. If it's around any time I walk it, that's what we want to do. That's what the changes we want to make. And the best thing I think about making that show is when I get phone calls or emails or messages on social media from parents who say, my son or my daughter is visually impaired, and I've always worried that they're not going to be able to fit into the world. So they're not going to be able to do the things I want. Maybe they're dreaming too big. And do you know what? They're not. They're not dreaming too big. They can be anybody, anything. They could do whatever they want in this world. We will find a way of doing it. But we all have to think about how inclusive we are and how accessible we are. So it's a really proud thing that I do, and it's probably the best thing I've ever done, because it also shows my kids that, I'm not an actor. I don't act. This is what I do every day. But the fact that the cameras show it, and it is not made for TV, it is every day. We show everyday activities. But it goes down so well with kids, and they're not afraid of it.
And on set, you felt like the director was really helpful to you and other members of the team, right?
Yeah, so this is the strange one. The first couple of days, we went up to, when we were filming up in Scotland, I said to my wife, you're going to have to come with me. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to cope. 3 weeks out in Scotland with a team I barely know. I only knew a couple of people there. And so she came up with me, and we had this conversation right from the beginning with the crew. It's, if you don't know, ask. I won't be offended. Just ask me what. And within a matter of hours, people would give me visual descriptions. They will come and talk to me like I'm part of the team, not like I'm the blind person, but we will joke, we'll have fun. And I walked away 3 weeks. Well, my wife left like 2 days later. She's like, yeah, you got this, Amick. Off I go. And do you know what? To me, it felt like that 3 weeks I was with a group of people who didn't see me as that disabled person, who saw me as part of the team, treated me the same as everybody else, but their conversations would have a little bit more kind of instructions. Or if I'm walking around with the director, he would come on, grab my arm, let's have a walk. Perfect. Do you know what? That's what it is. Don't be afraid of it. If you don't know, ask. And I think we look forward to going back every year to film, and it just got better and better and better. And we still have a joke now. And I love that. I love that they will take that away with them. to every other project they do and think about it and not be afraid to ask questions.
Thank you so much, Amit. Quark has settled in.
Oh, he's on my
Fast
phone.
asleep
He's
now.
fast asleep, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he looks very comfortable. Okay, so next we're going to turn our attention to sound and what it means to design a show about sound that works for deaf and hard of hearing audiences.
I need to tell you something. Something amazing. There are little collectors all around us. But there is one in particular I want you to meet. The sound collector. And his best friend, Mole. To him, every sound is precious. Yes, he loves sound. Sounds to create, noises to make, sound to record wherever he goes, from small to enormous, from gentle to wild. I think he's always been there. I first saw him when I was a little girl. Oh, I love that mole. She's a collector too. A snuggle collector. So come with me. It's time you met him too. The sound collector.
How gorgeous is that? So, Erica, what were the unique challenges and creative choices behind designing the sound collector with deaf audiences in mind?
Well, we didn't set out really to make a show for deaf audiences any more than anybody else. But I think because it was a show about sound, we immediately thought, how are we going to make this a better experience, for deaf audiences? Our first idea really was like a postcard of sound. So it was for a still image, what would the sound be that went with that? Not necessarily what you might think. And so immediately you see that the problem there is the punchline of that idea is sound. And so it immediately causes a problem for deaf audiences. So at the same time, we started thinking about the idea of what if this character is our audience? What if he has lost some sound frequencies? What if he has some degree of hearing loss? And so we just reached out to everybody that we could find. We went to the National Deaf Children's Society, and through them, the British Society of Audiology, and very quickly found our first consultant, Dr. Ted Killen, who just led us by the hand into all kinds of awesome meetings and stories, with people with lived experience, and also really supported our idea of trying to, in the show, hear what our character hears. So he gave us, for example, an emulator where you can pick the degree of frequencies that the character has lost, so that when we show the sound, when we show the sound in the show, when we hear the sound in the show, it's representative of that kind of hearing loss. So within the show, there's 3 levels of sound. When we start, when he wakes up in bed, there's very little sound. It's quite silent. So it's a very brave choice for broadcasters as well, so allow us to do that, because he'd be like, hang on, I'll just turn the volume up. But so, and then when he puts his hearing aids in, usually first thing in the morning, we do like a pull focus, so that it's like his hearing starting to focus in, and you start to hear the muffled sounds of whatever's going on around him. And then later, usually when he's about to go out for the day, he puts on his headphones and switches on his mic like this, and then you can hear super sharp. And so, really too sharp. It's very exaggerated. But Ted was very much Dr. Edward was very much supportive of the idea that we exaggerate these sound differences to show kids what their friends are experiencing. And also, we had his tapes. He collects sounds on tapes. He has a little Walkman, and that's very similar visually to a radio aid, which kids use in school. So the teacher has a microphone on them, and the kids use the radio aid to better hear what the teacher's saying. So he was kind of immensely supportive. And then we had the very gorgeous Dame Evelyn Glennie actually approached us. She heard about what we were doing, and we had in fact thought about approaching her at the beginning and thought, why would she pay any attention to us? But she became our champion and our supporter and our great friend, and very much was again across the creative process. But yeah, they both supported the idea, particularly that this wasn't a show about a deaf character. It was a show about somebody going through their life, doing what they do, and this is just his experience. So it was kind of amazing and gratifying to have that, you know, so I keep looking at Tom, who's my husband and co-creator over there, the man, the legend. We very much felt this was not our lived experience. Should we be writing this? But because, like, literally every single person that has helped us on this journey was so generous and supportive of just the fact that it was going to be done, we just felt, you know, we felt incredibly humbled by the whole thing. And so, yeah, it's kind of, and to the sound. So Tom's background is as a composer and sound designer, and previously had lectured and run courses in sound, and particularly in hearing loss, particularly relevant for this, and the kinds of frequencies that you use. So he's much more qualified to speak about it than I am. But so we had some understanding of this, but also we wanted to, within the sound, make the sound as beautiful and rich an experience as we could. And so it was all recorded with an ambisonic mic, which is like, if you don't know, it's like a VR microphone with 4 capsules. Again, I don't really know what I'm talking about, but it creates an immersive sound. And so the sound is sometimes, you know, 150, like if you look at the sound projects, there might be hundreds and hundreds of different sound clips making up any particular frame that you're on. But yeah, it was just kind of we wanted it to be as an exploration of sound, like, and so it became about how different people experience sound. One of Evelyn's, so Evelyn has the Dame Evelyn Glennie Foundation. Their motto is teaching the world to listen. So one of the things that she would tell us is the difference, to think about the difference between hearing and listening. You know, we listen with our whole bodies. So Evelyn, if you don't know as well, is the world's premier solo percussionist. She's an awesome musician and composer, and she performs all over the world. And she's profoundly deaf, and she performs with her, she hears with her body, she listens with her body. And so the motto of that foundation is also about us listening to each other, us listening to each other's stories, and sharing experiences and so on. So it all seemed to fit in so brilliantly. And one of the things that she brought to the show creatively was she reviewed our closed caption, which were done in the usual way, where you submit your script and, you know, I think it's done automatically, like AI creates your closed captions. So she talked to us about the idea that if you see on closed captions, you know, in the background we can hear sheep. Well, what if you've never heard a sheep? What does that sound like? And of course you can understand this is what a sheep looks like, and that's the sound it makes. And this is a great story as well, because Evelyn grew up on a farm, so I just imagined her going around holding all the animals to tell what they sounded like. But so she says when she teaches or works with deaf people, she tries to describe sound using in a different way. So she describes it as something you might feel, or as an emotion, something like that. So a sound might be velvety, you know. So we asked our broadcaster, who was so supportive, ITV, if we could retract the closed caption we'd already delivered, and rewrite our captions to include at least some of these descriptions of sounds describing what it might be like. You know, so what's the difference between if you put your hand on a sheep or if you put your hand on a cow? And we were like, well, a sheep sounds kind of wet and wobbly, or a cow sounds like really, you could hear it through the floor, you know, so it becomes fascinating. And then ITV actually is down here, I can't tell. It's asked if they could then do that themselves. So they adopted that process themselves, which is awesome, and I think now use it on other shows too. But just, you know, just all these things that you like, that's just somebody making a brilliant suggestion. And I know, as I say, I know that we can just say, you know, there's sheep in the background, but it's so much better to try and find another way of describing something, you know, so... what else did you ask me? I just ramble.
Great. No, that's great. I think you've answered everything and really leading the way with what you're doing. It's such a brilliant example of how inclusion can shape not just the message, but the whole creative feel behind a show. It's so good to hear. Thank you, Erica. We're going to zoom out now to look at the bigger picture, how broadcasters like Sky Kids are embedding inclusion into the commissioning process itself. They're not just looking for great ideas, not only looking for great ideas, they're looking for ideas that are inclusive from the start. So let's take a quick look at some of the shows in their current slate.
Let's look out the window. What can you see? Can you hear that? The noise the train makes on the tracks.
Okay.
They laugh at me and they point at me and they stare at me, and I really don't like that.
Are disabled children getting the support they need?
School is stressful.
And do they feel like they are treated equally?
It makes me feel pretty angry. What was that?
That was the sound of cutlery on plates. Would you like your ear defenders, Eddie? It can be quite noisy in the restaurant, so maybe keep your ear defenders on for now.
I wish I had nose defenders.
Oh, some fantastic varied shows there. So Lisa, when you're commissioning at Sky Kids, how do you approach inclusivity from the outset, and what tells you that a pitch has considered accessibility and representation early on?
So I would say probably top level, two kind of guiding principles, one being not about us without us, and another being normalizing, not just accommodating. And I think it's not a tick box exercise. We hold ourselves accountable. We hold producers accountable. We have robust D&I initiatives for representation across the board. They're available on our website if you want to check out what they are, along with a lot of resources to help producers, to help creatives if they want to achieve these targets and bring projects to us. It's worth knowing that these targets are expectations. We do, like I say, hold ourselves accountable to achieving them. They're not just nice to haves. And it's very obvious when a project comes into us where it hasn't had either lived experience, like some of these wonderful examples, or meaningful consultation. And those are the two things that are an absolute must if you're going to bring a project to us that has a voice or a community. That it's not about really making a show for any particular person. It's making it sure that it's accessible to as many people as possible. And I don't think, hopefully, these shows show it doesn't have to be about any particular kind of person. It's everyone. And, you know, Boo Snoo is a fantastic example. It's an original IP. It was a risk to take for a broadcaster. It doesn't have a narrative, but it's one of our biggest shows. And so I think that more than anything can show that it's not really about defining anything that you're bringing to us. It just needs to have that integrity behind it. You know, bring your whole self to the project, no exception, but the integrity needs to be there.
Fantastic, well said. Thank you, Lisa. It's inspiring to see there how inclusive thinking is influencing content right from pitch stage and how broadcasters are helping to set the tone for change. But what about the industry as a whole? How do we make sure inclusion isn't just happening in isolated pockets, but becomes standard across production, crew, and creative teams? And that's where TV Access Project comes in. So, Lawrence, you've been at the heart of pushing industry-wide change. Could you maybe tell us more about the work of the TV Access Project and how it's helping to embed accessibility from the ground up?
Sure. So, TV Access Project, or TAP, is a partnership between 10 of the biggest broadcasters and streamers in the UK today. And I'll attempt to name them: BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Paramount, Sky, Disney, BritBox, Amazon, STV, and UK TV. Yeah, not even looking at my notes. So they came together to work on ways that we can get systemic change within our industry. it's divided into a number of work streams. I'll talk about a few of those. So I've already mentioned the 5 A's, or rather the first one, anticipate. There's also ask. So ask everyone on your production if they have any access requirements. Not just the people that you know are deaf or disabled or neurodivergent. Ask everyone. Ask people working on screen and off screen as well. You will have more people than you think. I absolutely guarantee it. And it's quite possible that they've just never been asked before, or even that they don't identify with one of those labels, but they still need a reasonable adjustment, and they're entitled to that under the law, and it's your duty as employers to ask. Next day is assess. So assess what needs to be done to remove the barrier. Adjust, to obviously make the adjustment, but then keep checking back in that the adjustment has worked and that the person doesn't need further adjustment making. And finally, the last A is advocate. So be that person, the planning meeting that sticks her hand up and says, what about access? Why don't we have some disabled writers? Who are we auditioning? Are we auditioning deaf, disabled, neurodivergent actors, etc.? Another strand of the work is around funding access. So those 10 broadcasters and streamers who are part of TAP have now all pledged to fund access on their productions over and above the production budget. So there's no the excuse that we can't afford to make things accessible, that just doesn't wash anymore, because productions can go back to their commissioner under that agreement, and there's a very simple form that those broadcasters and streamers have, and the process is designed to be quick to get that additional funding to make those adjustments. There's a new role within the industry called Access Coordinator, and that is a person who works as part of the production, as part of the crew, in order to work across the production with HODs, in order to make adjustments. So if you hire that as a coordinator, they will do that asking part. They will ask everyone if they have access requirements, and then they will coordinate across the production how those adjustments are made. It's not one person that deals with all the access, because access is everyone's responsibility on that production. It's just having a coordinator in place to make sure that those adjustments happen. And finally, there's way more things that TAP worked on, but within the 7 minutes that I have, finally, there's access riders, sometimes called access passports or access documents. So, particularly freelancers like myself that will go from one production to another, it can get a bit tiresome having the same conversation, explaining your access needs over and over again, and also it's like, oh, I might forget something or something else will come up. So lots of people now have a document outlining their access requirements. But mine's quite simple because I'm a writer, so it's mainly about travel, accommodation, kind of what I need in the room on the day. I've got friends who are actors and their access riders are far more complicated. They go into what makeup needs to know, what costume needs to know, what the sound department needs to know, etc. So it's having all of that information in one place that you or your agent can just send to the production when you're hired, so that they can set about making the adjustments that you need.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Lawrence, for that. Amit, I'm going to come to you to ask, what are the barriers that still need to be addressed around inclusive production, would you say?
Around inclusion, during production, I think Lawrence has kind of covered that. It's knowing the fact that despite having a disability, you can still do what you need to do, and it's having those implementations, having those access issues dealt with before you get there. It's having those conversations before you get on to where you need to be. But also, I find, recently, you've been hearing about disability tax, you've been benefits, everything kind of being dropped. I'll be honest, it's expensive being blind. It really is. I spend a lot more money on things that you probably wouldn't need to buy if you can see. Travel, the time, the energy, all of this all adds up. And the one thing that really bugs me is when I go and subscribe to a platform to stream films, and I pay the same amount as everybody else. I don't get a discount because I'm blind. It's the same amount. Yeah, I get a choice of what I can watch. Or there's a new film coming out and everybody's talking about it. I haven't seen it yet because it's out there, but it hasn't got an audio description on it. Cinemas, being told what time I can go and watch a production because that's the only time the audio headsets are available. It's getting better now. I did turn up to a production, to the cinema. I took my daughter to watch Stitch, and it was a time where they didn't have the AD symbol on the timings, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to chance it. I do chance it. I walked in there and I said, can I have an audio headset? They didn't say no. They gave me an audio headset, but it was one for hard of hearing. So it's just amplified what was coming out on the screen. And I know cinemas have these little screens that they're watching you on, anybody's filming, so I put a really bad face on. I know they're watching me, right? So I've got this really grumpy face on, hoping someone will see this, and they did. And a member of staff came over and said, are you okay? You look a bit, peed off. Is it not working? And I said, it's the hard of hearing one. And they said, oh, sorry, they're not labelled. It's really simple. It's not labelled. So they brought me 3. It's like, one of them's going to work. And it did. But it's common sense sometimes. And that's what frustrates me. We are there at a time where technology is great. I hate when production companies use AI for audio description. It's never correct. It's the wrong words, or it's not in time. When you're watching a program and the AD is thought about. I am a huge James Bond fan. I stick on James Bond, and the person who's describing it is a fan of James Bond. You can hear it in their voice. I don't need to. Do you know what? I can turn off the background noise and just have the AD on, and it's great because it is giving me everything that I need. But it's that if you take the time to think about, the end production. If you're going to put something out there, just make sure everybody can access it. If you've gone through the time and the effort, the energy to put something out there and you want the world to see it or hear it, make sure they can. And it's as simple as that. It's accessibility is one of those things that people think is going to cost a lot. And it does, if you think about it afterwards. You put it in production right at the beginning, and you think about it right at the beginning, and it's in that blueprint. It doesn't cost any more. If anything, it'll probably cost less because you're not having to redo it. It's the afterthought. I hate being an afterthought. I want to be part of society. I don't want to be that blind guy. I don't want to keep complaining all the time. I want to wake up in the morning, turn something on, and go out, do something. Or if I buy a product, I don't want to be using half of the product. I want to be able to fulfill, be able to use it. I pay the same amount as everybody else. I want to be able to use it. I don't want to pay an extra fee. I don't want to adapt it. I don't want to open it up, which I do. I open loads of things up and try and make it work for me. I don't need to do that. I want to literally take it off the shelf and make it work. And that's where we need to be at this time. It's an excuse, or we haven't had the conversation, is what I get. Oh, it's not in the budget. Oh, I didn't know that's not available. And that's not good enough. I think if you're going to put something out, make sure it's accessible for everybody.
And you also believe it improves children's literacy, don't you?
I do. It's, my kids, the kids, right? They sometimes want to watch with the volume on or with the volume off. They want to read the subtitles sometimes. My son loves having the subtitles on. He can hear. He can see and he can hear, but he loves he's got audio description and subtitles. He hasn't gone to the sign language yet. I can't help him with that. But he loves reading it because he says to me, I'll give you a great example. When he was about 4 years old, he said to me, "Daddy, how much can you see?" Now, we've never had this conversation with my son. Me and my wife have always thought, one day he's going to either ask or he's just going to get it. We're not going to talk about it. And he said, "Daddy, how much can you really see?" I'm like, "Boy." I said, if you close your eyes really tight and walk around, that's basically what I can see. And we love experiments in our house. So we went and got a pair of sunglasses and we tinted them out and we covered the sides. And we took him to his favourite place, which is Greenwich Park. Because we're having dogs, we're at a park every weekend. We got to Greenwich Park, and I said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And he said, "Yes, yeah, Daddy." My daughter was about 6 months old. She sat in the chest harness, and we put these glasses on. And then he held my hand and he squeezed it tight. And my wife said, "He's crying." And he got it. And I think that's when he realised, oh boy, it is hard for Dad. And then he said, "Is this why you tell me off when I let go of your hand? When we're walking to school?" I'm like, exactly. So, it's funny how kids' minds work. They don't have a filter, and I love that. I want kids to be able to see the ability of someone and not their disability. We all do things differently. I want kids to be able to turn on the TV, see disability, see different faces, different races, different languages, all spoken, because that's the real world, right? So it's not. I don't want them to be sheltered. I want these kids to grow up to see the real world on their screen, and for them to grow up thinking, do you know what, disability isn't a disadvantage, it's an advantage. I'm going to, if they're in a position where they're hiring or they're doing something in the future, they can think, okay, do you know what, the blind person thinks slightly differently to the sighted person. Do you know what, we need him on board. That's what I want kids to think. But we need to show that on our screen. If we don't, they're never going to get it.
Oh, we're so lucky with this panel. You're all so fantastic speaking. Thank you. We've got about 5 minutes left before we'll open it up to the floor for questions. So if I could just ask each of you quickly, what is one piece of advice you would give to creators who want to start designing content with accessibility in mind? Maybe we could just ask you one after the other.
Yeah, sure. I think someone else said it earlier. Nothing about us without us is the motto. Obviously, as a disabled writer, I will encourage you to employ more disabled writers. But aside from self-interest, that's also one way to make sure that access and inclusion are at the heart of your production, because it's there in the writing, in the thinking, in the design, right from the start.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Also, if you ask the questions. If you don't know, ask, but don't Google it. right? Don't take the easy route out. If you're going to do it, you need to find out the question. If you don't know, you go and ask, and that's the only way you're going to find out.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. Don't be scared of asking every stupid question you can think of, because, you know, there's not one place to get all these answers. There's not one place to find all these experiences. And, you know, like I've said, in our experience, everyone's super generous. Everybody wants this to change and be better, and everyone will help and feed back to you. So, yeah, don't be scared of asking.
Yeah, and for commissioning, I guess it's, as I said earlier, it has to be considered, whether that's life experience or meaningful consultation. And as commissioners, we're not scared to learn. You know, don't feel like you can't come to us because it's a little bit different or it's not something that's been done before. Because risk-taking doesn't need to be seen as risk-taking if it's a story that is actually going to entertain people. That, at the end of the day, is what we're here for, and to connect with as large audiences as possible. So, yeah, it just makes sense.
So, can I invite any questions? Has anybody got anything they would like to ask our panel? We'll bring a microphone over to you.
Hi, I just want to say this has been an amazing talk, so thank you for all of the panel that has been incredibly eye-opening and honest. I just wanted to kind of ask about something that you said, Dr. Amit, about the attitudes of parents and how there's sort of that initial fear and concern, as well as something that was highlighted in the video with bullying at schools as well, because I believe that the attitudes of parents is sort of like a prerequisite for child attitudes displayed in schools. I was just asking for all of your opinions about what can the media industry or people in general do to educate or change adult opinions to not only just initially highlight a disability or difference, and instead approach disabled people with a more inclusive mindset, as well as teaching children to have that inclusive mindset as well.
You know, that's a great question. It's funny, parents want to shelter their kids anyway, right? It's for me, I'm on the other side. I want to make sure that my kid has a fulfilled kind of childhood growing up, and we're not missing anything. You know, we will change things we do just so we can accommodate our kids. You know, I can't jump in a car. I can't go and take him somewhere. You know, it's slightly different for us, but it's also. Kids, like I said, don't have a filter. They will ask you questions. Adults will tend to focus on the disability, where the kids won't. You know, you can be standing at the school gates and it's, oh, when did you lose your sight? How did you? It's not a conversation I want to have with you outside the school gates, but they ask. So I think it's, you know, it's curiosity for a lot of adults, but then when they've got a child who has a disability, it's also, what's it going to be like for them growing up? You know, are they going to have the same opportunities as someone who's abled as they grow up? And we spoke about this earlier, and they don't. We don't, you know, disabled children don't get the work experience. You know, if they want to be a lawyer, if they want to be a doctor, they don't get that work experience like able-bodied kids do, because people see the disability as a disadvantage. I think even on TV, if we have characters who are disabled, we sometimes focus on that disability. It's like, wow, look at this, we've got a disabled actor coming. It should be, it's an actor, you know, and it's everyday life. I think we need to stop that. You know, it makes great storylines, but it's not real life. And if you're watching this with your kids, and then this is how adults are watching it, and they think, oh, you know, we need to make something big about a disability. That's wrong. I want to be part of society. I don't want to be that outsider. I don't want to be that afterthought. I want to be part of that conversation. And sometimes I have to walk away, you know, and it's frustrating because it's all focused on the negatives as opposed to the positive side of things. So if you're writing something, if you're commissioning something, you know, if you've got a diverse cast, you've got a diverse crew, use them, but don't make that the storyline. You know, it's every day. And I think once we normalize it's normal. And that's what it should be. I think someone's cut my microphone off.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm like, no, I'm going. I'm like, no.
Anything else you want to add? Anybody else want to add anything to that?
Well, yeah, I think the ultimate solution, back to what I just said, it is for disability to become every day on TV. And children's TV were ahead of the curve here. I think slowly adult TV is now doing what children's TV did 20, 30 odd years ago, because the things that make the biggest impact are things like disabled characters and soaps, Rose Ellis and Christopher Coulson winning Strictly, things that lots of people watch, showing disabled people being included and part of that and actively participating, albeit sometimes differently, but still being equally included. That's what will change the mindsets of those parents. And it's happening now.
Any other questions? I think we should try and end on a really positive note. Like Lawrence said, children's media is doing pretty well with inclusivity. Where do you think there's still more work to be done? Can I put it to you, Lisa?
Sure, I think it's probably just going back to what I said before, like challenge us. We want to know what those stories are, as long as they have integrity behind them, as long as they have that experience behind them. I think I said this earlier, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it's normalization, not just accommodation. So bring it from the start so that we know how to work with you, teach us, guide us your way of storytelling, and let's bring it to kids all over the UK.
I think that draws us to a very nice conclusion. I hope, like me, you found this really informative, really interesting, really powerful. Thank you so much to all of our panellists, to Lawrence, to Amit, to Erica, and to Lisa. Can we have a big round of applause? And to Quark, who's just woken up.